With Andrew Feinberg, and thanks for coming, Andrew, and thanks for getting us in all these great interviews we've had all day long.
It wasn't on me, but I do what I can.
And so, who are we with?
Well, you're with Ed Markey. I am the chairman of the Subcommittee on Telecommunications and the Internet. I'm also the chairman of Speaker Pelosi's Select Committee on Global Warming and Energy Independence.
And that's really important.
Well, so isn't telecommunications and the Internet.
Yep.
And a lot of what we have to do, actually, in global warming and energy independence, I think should be modeled on what we did in the telecommunications sector. When we passed the Telecommunications Act of 1996, not one single home in the United States had a broadband connection. So my goal...
And now, how many millions of people?
Well, now it's not ubiquitous, but it's nearly ubiquitous in America. And since 1996, we've moved to this broadband future, which means now the words we use are Google and YouTube and Amazon and all the other words that no one used in 1996. That's what we have to do in global warming. We have to pass the same kind of legislation that unleashes the wind, the solar, the geothermal, the wave technologies, the efficiency technologies that transform our country, the plug-in hybrid vehicles that we use. So,
in fact, you have a solar panel on the wall of your office, which is really cool.
I have a 1987 solar panel up there. I was the chairman of Energy back in the mid-1980s. So I keep that there with the goal that I can reduce its size by 100-fold and still get the same impact in terms of electricity generated in 1/100th the size of that panel in the future.
Yeah, I was just in Israel and met with several solar companies, and the innovation that's happening there and in Silicon Valley around these technologies is pretty incredible. We just met with Xerox, for instance, who's building solar panels. You thought they were a copier company, but now they're working on all sorts of interesting technologies.
Well, that's our problem. Too many oil companies, coal companies, don't see themselves as energy companies. Yeah. So they have to diversify more, but the government has to put in place the policies so that it's the 21st century types of technologies that are unleashed and not 19th century oil, gas, and coal that continue to hold on to us. That's the black rotary dial phone equivalent of where we still are in energy policy.
Why don't you tell us a little about your efforts to increase broadband penetration and get a more accurate count of who's got what and what broadband is?
The 1996 Telecommunications Act, which I'm proud of, unleashed a broadband revolution. But since 2001, the United States has slipped from number 3 in the world in broadband penetration, access, and pricing and capacity down to 15th in the world. And in a lot of ways, broadband is a proxy for how well your economy is doing.
Yeah.
The better the penetration, the lower the pricing, the greater the capacity, you know that economy is doing well. So what I have been able to do with the help of Speaker Pelosi is pass through the House of Representatives a broadband census bill. Let's find out in America, who has broadband? How much does it cost them? What's the speed that they're given access to? And then we can compare where we are in the rest of the world with real detail. And I think once we know, then that will unleash the next revolution, where we have to pass the legislation, put in place the policies, so that we're number 1 looking over our shoulders at number 2 and 3 in the world, rather than this pathetic position that we have now allowed ourselves to slip to.
Isn't it a little unfair to compare America to, you know, South Korea or whatnot because of the population density? I mean, if you look at New York, I bet the broadband population is closer to some of the other countries. But our country is so big and so spread out that it's much more expensive to bring fiber into a farming community, for instance. Or like where he lives, Petaluma, California, it's spread out. The houses are not close to each other. So you have a lot more cost to bring a fiber to his house than to a house where you're living closer together, right?
Well, I think that when we were number 3 in the world, that was the good position to be at, going up to number 1. I don't think I don't think being at number 15 is a comfortable position, because there are a lot of countries now all across Europe that have passed us, and I'm not talking here about Iceland any longer, or some smaller country. I'm now talking about good-sized countries that have put together real policies, and you know, and it's important for us not to have you know, broadband penetration become an oxymoron in the United States, a contradiction in terms like Petaluma nightlife or jumbo shrimp.
Do they have nightlife, Patrick?
So, you know, I mean, that's what's happening. You know, we're no longer able to accurately, you know, assess where we are or to compete. And this is the OECD. This is the international group that determines where we are. So it's not a good situation.
Yeah. What do you want to hear from the geeks around the world who are working, you know, on these technologies? And certainly, you know, guys at Google or Microsoft listen to me and are probably watching this video. What would you ask them to participate with you to help get some of these issues on the table?
I would ask them to understand, because they should, that all of this didn't happen by accident. That we didn't move after 100 years all of a sudden from the black rotary dial phone into this broadband world by accident. It was a set of policies that had to be fought out here in Washington with powerful interests on either side. And so we need them to weigh in on net neutrality. We need them to weigh in on a broadband census bill. We need them to understand that the new YouTubes and Amazons, et cetera, don't get created unless there's a wide open, chaotic internet that allows for the creativity, for the entrepreneurial spirit that characterizes it. And we shouldn't allow kind of the broadband barons to put up toll roads that stifle innovation, stifle the creativity that has made this the greatest means of communications and potentially capitalism, but also democracy that the world has ever known.
Well, speaking of that, what do you think about the recent free wireless proposals that have been banning around the FCC with these mandatory content filters that have sort of vague language, and someone might look at something the wrong way and say, well, this should be filtered, and you have, if this passes, a free broadband pipe for everyone that everyone can innovate on. What's your opinion on putting a lock on that door in any way?
Well, again, my feeling is that we have to make it possible for as many people using wireline or wireless to have access to this broadband technology. But at the same time, we have to be careful that we don't allow for corporate censorship to take place. I mean, we're seeing that in this debate between BitTorrent and Comcast. We're seeing this issue manifest itself with Charter in its desire to start tracking people in terms of where they go on the internet. So I've always been somebody that says that the individual should be the king when it comes to the internet. And we have to be very vigilant that neither the government nor the private sector exercises undue influence that can in any way constrain the individual.
You talked a little bit about tracking. The advertising technologies now that are coming out are getting very robust and being able to track you. Maybe not you, but to track your behavior and start putting better advertising in you. It's starting to get a little bit scary because I'm watching the tracking mechanisms that all these websites are using, you know, in my world, more than half the websites are using Google Analytics, for instance. And so Google just released a page that shows all sorts of stuff about the users who are visiting your website. And Yahoo has my blog log, which actually even shows, like when I visit TechCrunch, you know I'm visiting TechCrunch. My photo's right there on the website. And those tendrils onto that web page are getting pretty robust and far more robust than I think most people understand. What do you think? Do you think that there's going to be new legislation about how much studying of user behavior and stuff?
Well, you know, there is a Dickensian quality
Yeah.
to the internet, to all of this. It's the best of wires and the worst of wires simultaneously. It can degrade and debase, it can enable and ennoble. Now, I believe in this area that individuals should have to opt in. If they want someone to be tracking all their information and then tailoring advertising to you because the company knows what you like and where you go, well, I think you should have to opt in, not opt out. I think there should be an affirmative responsibility on the part of the corporate chieftains to have you give express permission. And I think that's the only way in which ultimately the public will accept it, because we're only one scandal away from everyone realizing that everything that they do is known. Now, here's my problem, that I only have 2 minutes and 6 seconds to go over and cast a vote 1/4 of a mile away on the House floor. And now I apologize to you for
no problem, but that's
chaotic.
That's part of why I'm here, is to understand your world, and we're going to let you go.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry about your
Thank you
hand,
for having me here. Thank you. I appreciate it.